It's destroying everything.
It's not destroying. It's making something new.
Welcome to Mojo at the Movies. I'm Eric, and joining me once again is Manny. How you doing?
Doing very well, Eric.
So we went to see Annihilation last night, which we were very excited about.
I was very excited to see it.
Right. So this is the new movie from Alex Garland. He's the guy who brought us originally The Beach, and then he wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine. Worked a lot with Danny Boyle, one of my favorite filmmakers, and his directorial debut was
Ex Machina, one of the better thinking man sci-fis that's been out in a while.
I absolutely loved that movie, and this is, again, a very cerebral sci-fi movie starring Natalie Portman. I guess just to explain, the idea is that there's like some kind of disturbance in like the swampy area of Florida, and they discover, the scientists discover what they call the Shimmer, and it kind of looks like, a
psychedelic force field around this little tiny area.
Right, like a lighthouse.
Yeah.
And everywhere around the lighthouse, it's almost like, when you're washing dishes and you have those bubbles, like the multicolor bubbles.
Yeah.
That's what the Shimmer looks like. And so a group of adventurous people go in on what seems almost like a suicide mission to figure out what's going on inside it, because other people have gone in, but no one really came back.
No one really comes out.
Except for maybe one or two.
One guy comes out.
We won't spoil it.
We won't.
So I have to say, I was really excited about it and disappointed at first. The first 2/3 of the movie.
I remember looking over at you in the theater, and you were kind of like, it's good, but
I had some problems.
Something better happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By the end, I was into it, but it took me a while to get there. Let's break it down. What were your impressions?
My first impressions was that I find the strongest character and the strongest performance in the movie was, of course, Natalie Portman.
Yep, she does a very
Now, I'm
good
not
job.
a gigantic fan of Natalie Portman. I'm really always indifferent on her. I think she's a great actress. I think that whatever movie she's in, it's good, unless if it's the Star Wars prequels, but that's personally my opinion. Other than that, everybody's performance was kind of like
the casting was
performance.
Right, it was lackluster.
Nobody left you and said, wow, she brought it in the movie.
Right.
There was one character that I kind of really liked, played by Gina Rodriguez, who was kind of like the tough guy.
Yeah.
But she had an interesting character arc to where she started being like this really tough person, and then she started being one of the first ones, once they go into the Shimmer, to start experience a different, like a shift in a tone in her character. Like she's trying to understand what's going on. She was really good, and obviously Tessa Thompson, who's always solid in every movie. She plays like this nice introvert genius type character who does a really good job.
But there was Jason Leigh, who I thought, for me, just took me right out of the movie. She's generally a good actress, but I thought she was really bad. It was a bad casting in this movie.
I don't think it was a bad casting. I just think her character was just not well handled in the overall story.
Right. I don't think she served the story that well. And I think the problem is that there was a lack of chemistry between the characters.
Yeah, I really felt like... And also they set up right at the beginning who's not going to make it out, which kind of completely took me out of the movie and removed all tension from these characters, which makes you already care less about them, because they set up the movie and they're like, well, this person and this person's not going to make it, so... you're watching the entire movie and you're just waiting, like, when is this person going to get off?
Sometimes that works, but in this sense, this being that kind of cerebral sci-fi movie, you're not necessarily thinking who's going to get picked off first. My other big problem was the effects, and I'll get to that. There are two beasts that they encounter when they're in the Shimmer.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to spoil, but I think you even see these in the trailers, or at least in some of the promotional material. One is a giant crocodile.
Yeah.
And the thing looks like it was out of...
it looks dated. It looks like it was the early 2000s, Lake Placid.
Right. Yeah, or Anaconda or something like that. Like it didn't inspire very much fear in me. The same with that, there was kind of like a weird hybrid bear-looking thing.
Bear-wolf thing.
Yeah.
Which was...
But the scene itself was...
The setting of the movie inside the Shimmer, and that kind of like this force field type of like dome that exists around it.
Where
the
everything
setting,
gets refracted.
the lighting.
Yeah.
All this, like, it made me believe that this place exists and people would question what's going on there. I really like that. The set of the lighthouse, for such a big movie to have a $50 million budget, I found it very small.
Well, the whole
All
thing,
the sets
yeah.
felt small and constrained.
I kind of get the feeling that that's a bit, that's his style.
Yeah.
It did remind me of Ex Machina in that sense, is that, the filming style and that kind of claustrophobic feel.
Yeah.
Even though in this movie sometimes you're in the forest and sometimes you're supposed to feel the space, it always felt a little bit
claustrophobic.
I kind of feel, I don't know if I made reference to Arrival yet, but it did feel to me like a similar type approach to Arrival, although for me, Arrival did it flawlessly.
Good sci-fi, it brings forth like these big ideas and it makes you think, and it all depends on, can you stick the landing with this idea? Can you jump into this world, stick the landing? And this movie does not do that for me.
Okay.
My impression from this movie was like, okay, everything looks beautiful, everything is amazing, the setting's great, we've got beautiful ladies throughout the whole movie, and you're watching and you're like, everything looks amazing. The characters, it's tough women, they're going in, they're like, let's do this mission, everything's great. I feel like you're checking off boxes on like what would be a good type of movie, and you're kind of not getting that even at the end.
Well, I would say that the concept, again, like Arrival, the concept is great. The idea, the themes are well explored, but the execution doesn't work. And that goes back to that, the crocodile and the bear and the acting, all the things that are supposed to make the execution work just kind of fell flat. But then, when we got near the end, and something happens, and this is like, it's like an acid trip. It was, you're kind of, breathing uncomfortably as if all of reality is changed, and it literally becomes completely unhinged from what we expect from reality.
Where you got pulled into the movie is where I got pulled out.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's not because of, I'm not that big into sci-fi, I love science fiction, a lot of my favorite movies are sci-fi movies. It's just that I found it was way too ambitious, and the execution of, especially the third act, was like a bit, it dragged. The movie, for me, has a pacing problem. And I get how Ex Machina had a slow burn, but the conversation and the interacting between Oscar Isaacs and the other main character that I can't remember right now, that conversation was interesting. The interview process, it was interesting steps of conversation. And it kind of kept you in until everything starts happening in the movie. It's just in this one, it's like, hey, here's a really dramatic moment, but we're going to cut it short to do some exposition and move it forward.
Yeah, there was a lot
of exposition. And then it's like any character development was neutered by having something as exposition as a scapegoat. I know it's hard to make these movies, and sometimes you got to do that, especially in these types of movies. But I was a bit like, okay, like you guys want to move it along, but also it's taking too long for you to move it along.
Well, I found at one point near the end, it almost, to me, resembled a Tool video. And I love Tool videos.
Yeah.
That was a positive thing for me. Like, it kind of got that weird, although the characters looked almost like, one of them looked like it was straight out of the Daft Punk Around the World video. So it was like music videos, or you even mentioned Muse.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of stuff that Muse does, especially at the end with the psychedelic stuff. The sound design.
The sound design was amazing.
Yeah.
And what was very cool is that sometimes it was like acoustic, familiar sounds, things that are organic that we're used to hearing, and then sometimes it got so otherworldly. As the movie progressed, it got, the sound was something that was so, it got deep in your bones.
And I find that's a big premise in this movie about how it's a lot about genes and how genes and on cellular level and
genetics,
how genetics and everything can adapt and become, and how cells adapt and they move forward, or how a disease works in the body and how it breaks it down. And I guess the sound design really kind of like brought you in to feel it. It reflected that a lot.
Yeah.
And also how like the environment is affecting the people inside, and it's great. It's just, again, it fell a bit flat for me.
Well, it's interesting, you mentioned the cellular stuff, and the whole theme of this movie is self-destruction. But it's self-destruction in the grand scheme, and also, on a cellular level.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool, but again, it was, they tried hard, and A for effort, certain things just kind of fell flat. But in the end, when we both left there, and I was struggling because I didn't like it at first, and then in the end I was like, ooh, well, maybe.
Well, maybe it was good, yeah.
And then You know, the mark of a good movie is a movie that stays with you.
Yeah.
And I thought about it all night. I woke up thinking about it. And
Me
you
too.
said, before we parted ways, you were like,
this movie makes me contemplate my existence.
right, exactly. And so in that sense, you know, I guess they did it right. I'd be curious to know what our viewers think. So let us know what you think in the comments. I personally liked it, but it was a struggle to get through it.
It was a struggle to get through it for me as well.
Yeah. But I think, you know, Alex Garland is definitely someone to watch. And this movie, and it's going to be on Netflix pretty soon. So
well, its international release is going on Netflix.
Yeah.
And in US and Canada, it's getting a theatrical release.
Yeah, and it's out in theaters pretty much as of tonight.
Yeah, as of tonight.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.
You have to tell me where he was, what he was doing.
Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.